back. Today is tax day. New polling from the Cato Institute finds more than half of Americans say taxes are too high, with most worried that they can't even afford higher taxes next year. But Congress's budget reconciliation plan is popular. 75% want lawmakers to make the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act permanent, while 64% say they want to cut spending and balance the budget. Joining me now is Louisiana Congressman and House Majority Leader Steve Scalise. Congressman, it's great to see you this morning. Thank you so much for being here.
Morning. Great to be with you, Maria.
Do you expect that you will see those tax cuts become permanent?
Yeah, that's our goal, and we can do both of those things you just mentioned. Number one, make sure we keep tax rates low and get control over spending, which both are things that people want all across this country. And unfortunately, Democrats in Washington are adamantly opposed to. So we're going to continue fighting to get that done.
So where are you in the process? You left on Friday for the Easter recess and was able to pass that budget resolution. Tell us about the work that begins when you come back in 2 weeks.
Right. This whole reconciliation process is a two-step process. You first have to pass the budget. We've now done that. The House and Senate had some minor differences. We got an agreement on those two and some really important commitments from the Senate. So that now we're both talking the same language, in essence, when we start the reconciliation process, when we return from Easter. So we have a very aggressive time frame. We have 11 committees in the House that have been working for months, Maria, to be ready for this moment. We've been talking with President Trump going back over a year ago, where we've been laying out the foundation for how to keep tax rates low, how to produce more energy in America, which will be in this bill, how to fund the president's border security measures, which will also be in this bill. Some other important things, all in this one big, beautiful bill. We're going to move it quickly because the economy is waiting for this to happen. You've heard numbers like trillions of dollars sitting on the sidelines until they see what the tax code looks like. So let's lock it in. Let's get permanency on the tax rates. Let's get real energy production and economic growth so that we can get the economy moving, get more wages in people's pockets, and lower costs at the grocery store, at the gas pump. All that's going to happen when we get this bill passed.
How much credibility should we put into the idea that you all are talking about a new tax bracket for the highest earners of 40%? And doesn't that hit small business if you were to go down that road?
Well, I don't support that initiative. Look, everything's on the table, and that's why you hear all kind of ideas being bounced around. But frankly, you need to start, Maria, with what current policy is. And if we take no action, then you'd have over 90% of Americans see a tax increase. And again, every Democrat is against this. So if you have a Democrat member of Congress representing you, call them and ask them why they want your taxes to go up. Because every family will see a tax hike and every small business in America will see a tax hike if the Democrats get their way. We're going to make sure that we're able to lock in those lower rates for everybody so we can get that economic growth. Low taxes produce more revenue and more competitiveness for America, Maria. That's what we want to see.
Congressman, what do you want to say about tariffs and the president's plan here? The president has talked about pharmaceuticals and semiconductors now joining the list of steel, aluminum, autos, auto parts, lumber, and copper in the Section 232. That, of course, is the national security investigations, whereas those sectors face a 20% tariff just because of the emergency of a national security issue. And it is. I mean, we rely on the underlying components of pharmaceuticals from China, and we rely on advanced semiconductors from Taiwan. But people are a little confused about the impact of these tariffs. What do you want to say about it?
Yeah, you know, and of course, you just talked about that NVIDIA announcement. Hundreds of billions of dollars coming into America. We've got a multi-billion-dollar Hyundai plant in my home state, Louisiana. You're seeing announcements. We've told it up almost $4 trillion, Maria, in private investment that has come into America to manufacture, to make things here at home because of President Trump's actions. So I think the real question is, where does this end? And I think Japan is going to be the canary in the coal mine. Japan was the first country to call and say, look, we want to meet. And you heard Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent say there's about 75 countries who have reached out to the United States and said, hey, we want to talk about tariffs. And a lot of these are countries that have had high tariffs against us, and we had nothing against them. So, let's have at least a fairness where we can lower, ideally, to zero tariffs. And so look at what happens with Japan. I think that's going to tell you a lot about so many other countries. China's going to be a unique situation because they don't play by anybody's rules. They manipulate currency. They steal IP. But all these other countries that want to get new deals hopefully want to go to zero on tariffs against us and allow our products to be sold in their countries. If we get fair trade out of this, I think that's going to be great for all countries, but especially the United States.
Yeah, it's a good point. All right, so we'll wait to see some of these early deals that the president is negotiating right now, Japan included, South Korea perhaps, India perhaps. Meanwhile, the White House is asking Congress to claw back money, more than $9 billion he wants clawed back in previously approved funding. Some of those rescinding requests include more than $1 billion for NPR and PBS, $6 million for net zero cities in Mexico, $3 million for Iraqi Sesame Street in Iraq, $1 million for voter ID in Haiti, $750,000 spent on reducing xenophobia in Venezuela, and another $8,000 for promoting vegan food in Zambia. Leader, I've been asking all morning, how the heck did this stuff get passed in the first place?
Yeah, and Maria, this is an example of the waste, fraud, and abuse you see at so many agencies. These are not line items in the appropriations bills that we vote on. It's little slush funds that agencies have, even things like USAID. There's no line item in the budget for that. That's something the Secretary of State was taking pots of money and spending on. Look, I call the $9 billion a good start. There is a lot more, but thank goodness DOGE and Elon have been identifying so much waste, fraud, and abuse. I think the American people are disgusted by the waste they're seeing of their tax dollars, especially on a day like today, April 15th, when they're writing those checks to the federal treasury, to know that that money's not all going to help keep our country strong with a national defense, but it's going to waste money in these other countries, Sesame Street and, transvestite operas in Guatemala. This is lunacy, and it's got to end. We're going to start with that $9 billion, and I think that's just the beginning. We're going to go further.
All right. We'll be watching your work, sir. As always, great to see you this morning, Congressman. Thank you.
Great being with you. Thanks.
Steve Scalise is in New York this morning. Stay with us. We'll be right back.